Hello everybody and welcome back. Today's first day in the second week of the interval training. Being too slow in the last warm-up session from 2 days, I actually pushed myself a bit harder today and I immediately got the results. I was ahead of around 100 meters. The only problem was that the first intense interval was a mix between flat pedaling and one of the steep ramps right at the beginning. So I had to shift to a very high gear on the first few meters as it was flat and I had no problems to gather that speed. Then I approached the ramp. I didn't manage to shift quickly enough, so therefore I had to shift right into the slope. I tried to switch the gear, but somehow it didn't click, so I thought I was already in the right gear. I pushed really hard into the pedals, but then suddenly it cracked and the gear jumped in, so that was probably not the best thing I could have done to my chain and overall chain rings. And after that, I really can't remember if the shifting was that bad before that incident, but afterwards shifting somehow felt a little bit strange and the chain was making strange noises. Nothing too bad, but I still have to investigate that as I wanted to finish my ride without stopping any timer. But one thing I also noticed that always after cleaning my bike, in this case it meant only flushing the dirt down without any soap, just water and pressure, that sometimes the gears work best if there is a little bit of dirt. So sometimes if I clean my bike, it happens to work worse afterwards. But in that time it was raining before, so my bike was a bit wet too and covered in mud, let's say the South Tyrolean style of covered in mud, so in contrast to you guys, almost not covered in mud, as it is always dry at our place. And this time I was ready to see if the interval training already brought me some results, but I had to keep myself in check to keep pedaling, especially at the beginning at not a too fast pace, because I really was eager to push really hard today, but I stuck with my training, so there is one interval session left, which will be on Saturday. And then on Monday we will have the evidence. There I will do the reference training after 2 weeks of this type of interval training, how much of an improvement it got me. And after that I will decide which training method will join me along the next few weeks to crush the time which I made earlier this year with my e-bike, as I'm only going to do the interval training which gives me the best results. If you can remember the last type of interval training with 5 minutes of intense interval and 2 minutes of rest repeated 3 times, improved my time by 50 seconds. So let's see if I can beat that difference with this kind of interval training. So far I feel stronger and stronger each ride, to be honest. But I also have to say that today's ride wasn't as easy, because always at around the 7th interval it gets really hard, especially today as I pushed my legs to the very limit, and on the last 2 intervals actually I couldn't push that hard, not at the beginning, but I tried to push further than possible, especially on the last 10 seconds. I had a really hard time recovering, especially from the last intense interval. I don't know, while changing my gear, while putting on my knee pads, while setting up the pressure in my tires, and also while talking to 2 guys I met from a local town up there, I couldn't really recover that much. I still was breathing, not extremely hard, but especially on the downhill, normally I do it in one attempt, so I don't have to stop anywhere. But this time I had to stop in the middle of the trail to get some power back. Otherwise I would have risked to crash as my legs couldn't keep up with the speed. So I played it safe this time. While going down on the tarmac road, where I normally ride between 40 something kilometers, I developed, let's say, a new kind of sport. I call it mountain bike carving. Actually is if you go downhill on a tarmac road, you shouldn't do this if the tarmac road is covered in stones and stuff like that, or if it is a forest road. I tend to use up the whole lane and I do really quick and tight turns. So like carving on your skis, you would basically lean in as much as possible into the turn without leaving the saddle. So normally, or I do that, I tend to push down the bike in the direction of the berm and I try to stay upright with my body. But in this time I try to mimic the angle of my bike with my body and try to lean in the turn so it kicks me out right off the end of the turn. So it's some sort of carving. It makes quite a lot of fun, but you have to be cautious about gravel and so on the tarmac road itself, as if you slide while doing so, I don't know how bad the crash will be, but it could end pretty bad. At least in my case, as I'm riding pretty fast down that road. And at this time of the year, in my opinion, it's the most beautiful season of all. Not only from the perspective of the leaves turning yellow and red, but also as we live in a valley surrounded by a lot of mountains, the sun is actually setting quite early. Obviously, during summer it is bright outside until around 9 or 9:30 p.m. But you don't have those golden hours where actually the sun is that close to the horizon that the sunlight starts to begin shine orange instead of the, let's say, transparent light you have during the whole day. As when the sun is setting, blocked by the mountains, it cannot develop that orange light, which is caused normally by the sun shining through a lot of air layers, which then break the light into that orange light. And the special thing about autumn, our place, is that the sun is going down exactly in that spot where the valley is going. So the sun is longer visible and the place where it can shine through more layers. So actually the light is way more photogenic during autumn than it is during summer. I like it a lot, as I like to take photos during that so-called golden hour. All photographers among you will know that term. And if you check out my Instagram story, you can see how beautiful it turns out and how beautiful the light is casted on the mountains on one side of the valley. With that said, thank you for listening and until the next time.